talk about this book, Transgynecology. So I had lots of people that were excited, like me, about this book. But I think that a lot of people aren't going to pay $100 plus to buy it and maybe not sit down and read it. So I thought for ease and accountability, you can be my accountability buddies. I would read a couple chapters at a time and then pop on here and tell you some of my thoughts. Oh, I took that down earlier and now I'm putting it down again. There we go. So the first chapter is terminology in transgender medicine. So this particular chapter, so first of all, I want to say that this book is for gynecologists. Like, it is a textbook for and by. So this is not meant for the layperson. I do work with trans scars, and I work with trans scars post-surgical gender-affirming surgeries, including bottom surgery, including internal scar care work. So this is pretty relevant to my work, thus I bought the book, but it's may not be as relevant to some other work. So anyway, I'm starting with that. So this is going to be a little bit of combination of like what's in the book and just my take. So as a trans body, as a trans masculine body. So one thing that I really appreciate so far about just these first two chapters I've read is that it addresses semantics to begin with. So I really appreciate that it both honors identities and is a bit anti-identitarian in that it includes a broad compassing understanding of the umbrella of what could be gender nonconforming and not just binary trans. So that's wonderful. That seems to be really threaded throughout the book, which is beautiful. I would also say that they name a need to look at, for gynecologists and healthcare practitioners to look at their own implicit biases, which we would hope would be happening anyways, but we know is not. And so far in these chapters, all of the authors are really bringing in a lens of intersectionality. And I appreciate that they're naming discrimination, transphobia, historical stigmatization, minoritized figures. Per usual, I'm kind of enraged nobody mentioned sexism, which has a huge impact on healthcare, especially gynecological healthcare. So I don't know. I would love to think that we were past that point. I think the cancer outcomes we still have for women proves that we're not. So anyway, I would have loved to have seen that here, but that is another day. So they also are really big about naming the sources of rupture that have occurred within medical healthcare with regards to trans patients and the need for reparative care. And that's pretty significant. Like, I've never seen that named in medical textbooks before for trans care. So that's pretty cool. They also call for a lot of like cultural responsiveness, which again, we would hope that that would be there generally because not everybody is from the monolith of white America, whatever that is, as a white bread kind of staple. We have, people coming from all over, and so you would hope that that's already there, but unfortunately it's not. So again, they're calling for that sort of like having cultural humility, which I really appreciate, especially in this context, because we're talking about difference in bodies. So that's pretty significant. Let's see. Oh, I loved this. Health and conformity to social expectations were conflated. Ooh, I feel like that's a big one. It's interesting to read about that when I think about like the pathologization of trans people cognitively in the past, that we were mentally ill. And that has, we wish more so, had gone by the wayside. And now what we see more in medical fields is that our bodies are pathologized as not right. And they can fix that. So I have a whole dissertation to share about that. I'm not going to go into that in this moment. But I did appreciate that conflation of health and social expectations. And I would add, like, what are social expectations when it comes to gender, right? So that's a little wormhole if you want to go down that, because many people would say it has to do with your body, and many people would say it doesn't. Some of those people are trans, some of those people are not. Murky waters. So I love them. They're fun and interesting, and also, so, let's see. It was interesting to read about a research paper, and I'm trying to get my hands on this research paper. So what was it? See, it was about post-cancer and trans patients, and it was comparing the results and appearance after mastectomies. So I'm gonna try and get my hands on that research paper because I think that that's gonna be pretty fucking cool. The last SCAR training that I did, I got to spend several days with a couple of post-mastectomy and rebuild, both rebuild and non-rebuild cancer patients. And those rebuilds were very different. One had been a tummy tuck that then the fat cells had been put into the breasts. Another one had foregone reconstruction. And another one had gone with silicone. So all these different varieties of post-cancer mastectomy and rebuilds, and the incision points completely different, which is pretty frustrating too, because if you know anything about surgery, like a plastic surgeon will cut along tension lines within the bodies. And if you have seen people who've had cesareans, that's often not the case. They don't bother, which makes a big difference when it comes to scar healing. So anyway, just to say, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that research paper because I want to know more. So another thing about the first chapter was that they pointed out that in the medical, and this is kind of a duh, but I appreciated they pointed it out, is that within the medical complex, efficiency trumps human diversity. And to be a more capable practitioner, you need to be aware of that. You need to do something differently accordingly. So, I really liked, okay, so towards maybe the middle of chapter 1, they start really bringing in this point about oral history and how the need for open discussion of positionality and power differentials can make the difference for whether a trans person feels heard, much less if they're going to carry through with the care plan afterwards or come back, so I really appreciated seeing that names. I mean, community sharing and oral histories, like this web of care that we create, within queer communities, within many marginalized communities. It's just so pivotal. So to be able to see that really named and forefronted in a textbook, I thought was pretty fucking significant. So that's nice. And it ended up being an additional thread also woven into chapter 2. So I hope to see that continue forward. So that was nice. Yeah, so that's kind of chapter 1. Oh, they also named the centering of like cis het normativity. And that was pretty significant, I think, to be able to see in this kind of a book. So yeah, nice. I actually, after I finished the second chapter, I figured out what website I had purchased this from, and I purchased the second one for my clinic. So I live in the gay village in Montreal, and I go to a sexual wellness clinic because I am both trans and a slut, and I make up the demographic that gives them funding. So I'm going to give them a copy of this book because I want them to be able to have it on hand, and I hope that they will share it. So, and some of the things I noticed, like coming out of chapter 2, we'll dive into that in a minute. I was like, yes, my lovely physician, yes, could use with this little tidbit here. So that's nice. Things to note. So, okay. Chapter 2. Let me grab my notes out real quick. I got a lot more out of chapter 2. I feel like chapter 1 was a nice, like, laying the groundwork. So we're going to be holistic, and chapter 2 is about like optimizing the clinical OBGYN services through improved communication specifically. So they set the stage with their oral histories and being inclusive of understanding intersectionalities. So in this chapter, one thing I noted was, let's see, there was a lot of words that I really appreciated the use of. So let's see, there was neovagina, native organs, natal reproductive system. Like, they're being really inclusive with their language, and they're offering a lot of differing alternatives as they're telling practitioners that they need to do their work to get on board with this. So that's beautiful modeling happening there. So I appreciated that. Let's see. They did talk about, so, and this is how I got into this work. So follow-up care isn't done with the gender specialized clinics the ways that a lot of people think that, oh, you're going to do my surgery, you're going to do my aftercare, but they don't. Like, rarely to none. They don't. So let's say you have vaginoplasty. Here in Montreal, the GRS handles those surgeries. Right now, you get one, unless you have complications, you get one. About a year later, consult, a visit. And right now, they are arguing to try and make that consult into a phone call. So you get your shit turned inside out into your body, and a year later, they're like, hey, how you doing? Does that seem fucked up to anyone else? It's crap, y'all. Aftercare is nothing here. So, and this is indicative of everywhere for the most part. So, we are not a special unicorn there. We actually have some of the absolute most amazing surgeons right here in Montreal. I'm so thankful. And aftercare is still shit. So, one thing at a time. So that usually, those things fall to OBGYNs. So that's a problem if we don't have OBGYNs who are fucking trans competent, right? So thankfully we have books like this that hopefully we can put in their hands, and they want to learn. This is pretty amazing. It came out in December of this last year, so it's pretty fucking new. So that's cool. So aftercare, trying to get that. And again, going back to, so many people within community don't trust healthcare because we've been hurt and harmed by them, and we haven't been seen by them, and it is often not a pleasant experience. And so we rely on community to figure out how to tend to ourselves, how to get care, how to support the problems that we've got, post-surgical. So that's where scar care can really come in handy. And lots of other things. So what else about this chapter? They're talking about a lot of the, just the barriers. Healthcare engagement in general is much lower in this group. Things like this. And they go into a lot of the whys, which if you're familiar with us, I don't need to go all back through it. But so this chapter is about sensitivity, to have a holistic approach, being affirmative, and co-creating. I really like that piece, the co-creating piece. I think that's significant. So let's see. Oh, what was it? Let's see. There was a piece about Okay. So there's a lot of kind of calls to reflection for the healthcare practitioner. So it may be valuable to reflect on one's own gender and sexual orientation as a healthcare professional. And then they go into that further. But they said establishing an affirming approach requires OBGYN professionals to be more reflective on their own assumptions and normative values than for many other patient populations. And I got to say, that pissed me off. That pissed me off because I was like, most of the people who are accessing these surgeries are white, college educated, able bodied. So to say that we need more than many other patient populations, I think we need to be really fucking careful about that, especially when we're talking about like cultural competence. Like that is a problem, period, end of story. Thank you, racism. So that got me a little like, I don't know, y'all. Be careful. So just, I'm gonna bring the love as well as the critique, just FYI. So that was a piece of critique where I was like, careful. But anyway, I do love that they talk about intersectionality in a lot of ways. You know, one of them is socioeconomic challenges. Like, it's one thing to get access to the care, if especially up here in Canada, if you have access to, if you are a citizen, have access to the medical health insurance, right? I come from California, and it's questionable depending on the type of healthcare you have, whether you're going to have that kind of support. And then it's not just the support of getting to the surgery. Then there's all the time off work that you need, and the funds that requires, and the support that you need physically from caregivers, and all of these things. So it adds up. In this chapter, they talk a lot about connecting with local and regional organizations, and I love that so much. So much of our community is really just built in grassroots love and adoration for one another and our needs. And so I love that they, over and over again, the authors really double down on building working relationships, especially if you're going to be doing education. Is they're like, don't come up with this on your own. Use local organizations who know what the fuck they're doing, who are steeped in this because it's their own culture. So I appreciate that. That's beautiful. What else? Yeah, also in research, involving us in all stages of research, naming that, you know, it seems like a meh, but no, they need to hear it. So that's awesome. The authors also really name balances and experience dependency on healthcare practitioners and professionals. And I think that that is really significant to be named, and something to note, especially when we have to jump through so many hoops to get access to gender affirming care. Those barriers are shifting depending on where you are. Context is everything. So whereas in Quebec, you used to need a note from I think it was a psychologist, or at least maybe social worker. Now I think it was a psychologist, and now you can get it just a social worker. Like, the bar has lowered, which is excellent. So there are still hoops, and pieces, one piece at a time. You know, I feel like one step forward, two step backs, two step forward, one step back. Here we you know, we are making progress. And so I love the deep inclusion of non-binary and different gendering populations within this book so far. So let's see, one example is it says, the best guideline is to assume nothing, take individual characteristics into account, and gradually increase towards more impactful interventions or questions. So that goes on into later as they're talking about genderqueer patients. Let's see. Talking about having surgeries that are non-binary and genderqueer, you know, having a phalloplasty while conserving the vagina. This can be viewed as an expression of non-binary gender identification. It can also support transmasculine people who want to preserve the capability of pregnancy, right? So that's pretty fucking beautiful to see here. I'm so glad about that. Yeah, I'm glad for that. Whew, what a world. Crazy. So, what else? Oh, what was it? They make a point of saying that we are often relying on our own community for communication, and for information about our health and about healthcare needs, everything from cervical cancer to transmasculines being pregnant, things like this. And transfeminine transfeminine people being able to breastfeed, these kind of things. And so they point to the fact that we use reports of friends, back to that storytelling, back to the grassroots organizing, and social media as a primary information source. And so that's pretty fucking significant to have stated here, so that these professionals know that's where we're getting our understandings from. And yeah, it's why my business is pretty much completely word of mouth. Like, I show up here not because this is where people find me, but people like hear about the work that I'm doing, the scar care work that I'm doing, post gender affirming surgeries, and then they come check out my stuff. But it's being able to talk to somebody else who has been through these experiences, who has these bodies, who wants to connect with another person who is trans, who has these experiences as well. Like, it's pretty fucking significant to be able to find that. There are not a lot of us. I have several healthcare practitioners that I work with, and few to none are trans. And I aim for them, I target them for sure, but that's a tall order. Montreal, we're really fucking lucky. We've got so many incredible genderqueer, non-binary body workers of all kind of sorts, everything from osteo to, just an array of people, and several trans folks as well, increasingly. And I'm looking forward to that just growing and growing and growing. So hopefully we shall see. They go through an entire piece around genital examination. This was the piece where I was like, I'm buying this book for my doctor. So, and I loved this little piece. I'm going to read it to you because it really, I think on a medical level, really encapsulates so much of why I do the work, why I do the work I do, how. So more guided and stepwise approaches with good healthcare professional patient communication, e.g. using terminology chosen by the patient, are likely to lower the pelvic floor muscle tonus and make exams less painful. To some, having a partner or trustworthy person present can lower stress levels, whereas for others, trauma treatments or medication can support exams. So I love that. And I wrote slow down in all uppercase letters next to it. So the scar care that I do, I usually allot 3 hours. I allot 3 hours for an appointment. And that's because the first hour is just getting to know each other and building trust and learning how one another wants to be communicated with, needs to be heard, these kind of things. Just taking the time to really sink into that, as they say, stepwise approach, and communication, and that lowers the tension in the pelvis. And it's so true. The other thing that I do is I do a lot of just kind of loosening up the body to start, especially with my pelvic floor, my trans femme folks. So getting all of those muscles to just relax, especially those of us who sit in a chair all day. That's another whole, so, and then having somebody who's trustworthy present, right? And so I always tell my clients, like, the first thing that we're doing here is we're building a sense of first safety, and we're going to do that mostly through orientation of the space, and then we're building a sense of comfort and figuring out what you need in order to support that, and for not only for the patient to have comfort with me, but for me to have comfort with the patient, because I need to trust the patient to tell me yes or no. I need to trust the patient to listen to their own body, right? So we play a lot of somatic games to kind of have a sense of like where somebody is so that I can meet them there. Now, I don't need them to be somewhere where they're not, but I need to know where they are as far as being able to listen to their body and then communicate that to me. And wherever they are, it's my job to meet them there. So that's kind of the second hour, and then the third hour tends to be the scar remediation work. So yeah, and then I appreciate that they said whereas for others it's trauma treatments or medication, and I can't tell you how many people are like, I need to smoke a bowl. I'm like, yeah, do whatever you need to do. So having support. Some people want to meditate. Some people really want to do breath work with me. Less so. The breath work can be really affronting. So, but for some of us find that very helpful. I find that very helpful. That was actually mentioned in here. Was that let's see. There was a noted use of meditation or dissociation during genital exams. So that's pretty fucking significant to state. So, yep. I know I go to my breath when I'm having genital exams with my doctor. And he seems far more uncomfortable than I am. So I actually recently made a point of that. I was like, am I getting less of an exam because you are uncomfortable? I think so. Because I'm not uncomfortable, So, but his discomfort made me uncomfortable. So, and I think his discomfort is cautiousness and care, actually, coming out as discomfort, which I have a lot of compassion and appreciation for, and also, I need you to do your job, sir. So, it's complex. It's complex. So, I think that's all I've got for chapter 1 and 2 of Transgynecology. So I'm going to get through a couple more chapters. The next one is, what do trans people expect from transition, and what do they encounter physically? So there are expectations, and then there's what we have to get, which we actually get up to. So yeah. Okay. Happiness. I'm nerding out on this. I hope you enjoy it too. If you do end up picking up the book and reading it, I want to talk to you about it. So I hope you want to talk to me about it. That would be really cool. So, and even if you don't read it, I want to talk to you about it if you want to talk about it. So feel free to slide into my DMs if you've got specific questions or comments or concerns or bitches or complaints. I'm happy to receive them, and I'll decide what I want to do with them after that. So, all right. Bye.